They called him David Mensa, the billionaire who could turn dust into gold. He owned luxury hotels, real estate blocks, even a racing team. His face shone on magazine covers beside presidents and kings. But behind the flashbulbs and champagne, David carried a secret shame. His father, a struggling car mechanic, had died in a small roadside garage when David was only 12. A faulty jack had collapsed, crushing him under a truck. Nobody paid compensation. Nobody cared. His family starved until David clawed his way out of poverty, built an empire, and vowed never to smell grease again. But wealth has its ghosts. Whispers reached him. The garages he indirectly owned, small franchises under his conglomerate, were traps for workers. Long hours, fake parts, bribes, even criminal gangs using the garages as cover. Mechanics are replaceable, his executives said. Why waste time worrying about them? David couldn't sleep. He had built skyscrapers, but had he ignored the men who kept ordinary lives moving on four wheels? So, one night he made a reckless decision. He shaved his head, wore ragged jeans, slipped into worn-out boots, and took the name Isaac. No bodyguards. No press. Just a battered toolbox. His destination, McCullough Auto Yard. A sprawling jungle of scrap, engines, and grease, known for swallowing young men whole. Mechanics there earned less in a month than David spent on a single dinner. Some never made it out alive. For 7 days he would live their life. No billionaire, no suits, just a man among the engines. What he found there would not only shatter his heart, it would shock the entire world. The garage roared like a beast. Hammers, welders, engines coughing smoke into the sky. As David, stepped through the gates, one of the mechanics spat on the ground and sneered. Fresh meat. Let's see if you last till sundown. The McCullough Auto Yard wasn't a garage. It was a battlefield. Engines groaned like wounded animals. Men shouted over the hiss of welding torches, and smoke curled thick enough to choke. Rusted car shells piled like tombstones. Every corner reeked of petrol, sweat, and desperation. Isaac, once billionaire David Mensa, stepped in clutching his battered toolbox. No Rolex, no tailored suit. Just grease-stained overalls and a fake smile. His heart pounded like a hammer. A man with a scar running across his cheek spotted him first. You. New boy. His voice was gravel, his eyes sharp. Isaac nodded. Yes. I can work. Scarface smirked. We'll see. He tossed him a wrench. First lesson, tools don't lie. Men do. The others laughed, circling like hyenas. Fresh meat, one shouted. Hope your mama kissed you goodbye. Isaac bent to work on a rusted Toyota. His hands, once trained to sign billion-dollar deals, fumbled with the bolts. The wrench slipped, scraping his knuckles. Blood welled. The men burst out laughing. Look at him. City boy doesn't even know how to bleed. The foreman, a thick man called Bulldog, barked orders. Isaac was sent running, fetching parts, draining filthy oil, scrubbing carburetors black with soot. His back screamed. His shirt clung wet to his skin. At noon, the men devoured kenki and fish, grease still on their hands. Isaac sat apart, nibbling at a crust of bread. A boy, no older than 16, shoved a bowl toward him. Eat, new boy. You'll need it. Isaac nodded his thanks. The boy's name was Kojo, an apprentice who worked 10 hours a day to pay for his sister's school fees. His hands shook from exhaustion. Isaac's chest tightened. This boy could have been me. By evening, a customer stormed in. A taxi driver furious that his car still coughed smoke after 2 repairs. He demanded answers. Bulldog, sneering, shoved Isaac forward. Fix it, new boy. Or don't come tomorrow. The men roared with laughter. A billion-dollar empire's owner, now cornered by a smoking taxi. Isaac swallowed hard. His father's voice echoed in memory. Engines are like people. Listen, and they'll tell you their pain. He lifted the hood, ignoring the stares. The carburetor choked on dust. A hose leaked fuel. Simple, dangerous neglect. He tightened, cleaned, patched. Sweat poured. His fingers blistered. The engine sputtered, then roared clean. The driver grinned. It works. He slapped Isaac on the back and tossed Bulldog a note of cash. Good boy. The mechanics exchanged looks. Their laughter was gone. For the first time, respect flickered in their eyes. When the garage shut, the men slumped in the quarters, Wooden bunks, air thick with smoke. Kojo whispered to Isaac, "Be careful. Bulldog takes half our wages. If you cross him, you disappear." Isaac's blood chilled. Disappear? He lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling. His muscles throbbed, his hands burned, but his mind raced. He had come to taste their pain. But already on the first day he had glimpsed something darker. This wasn't just about low wages or broken tools. Something rotten lived inside this garage. And tomorrow he would step deeper into its belly. At dawn, before the siren even sounded, Isaac heard shouting outside. A worker was being dragged by two men in leather jackets. His cries pierced the yard. "Please. I'll pay next week. Please." Bulldog only folded his arms. Isaac froze. What debt? What kind of garage was this really? The second morning began not with engines but with fear. Before the sun even rose, Isaac woke to shouting in the yard. A man was on his knees, his shirt ripped, his face swollen. Two men in leather jackets gripped him by the arms like vultures pinning prey. "Please. Just one more week," the mechanic begged. His eyes darted toward Bulldog, the foreman, who stood with folded arms, chewing on a toothpick. "You know the rules," Bulldog said coldly. "No one works here owing the boys." The men dragged the mechanic through the gates. His screams faded into the early morning fog. The workers turned away, faces blank, as if it was normal. Isaac's stomach tightened. Debts? Who were the boys? And why did Bulldog let it happen? But he had to keep his mask. He was Isaac the new boy, not David the billionaire. For now, silence was survival. By midday the garage was chaos. Dozens of cars filled the dusty yard. Taxis coughing black smoke, battered Tierotros with busted engines, private cars hiding rust under thin coats of paint. Bulldog barked at Isaac. "Under the Mazda. Quick." Isaac slid beneath the car, his back pressed to the ground. Oil dripped on his face, the smell of metal biting his nose. His arms burned as he loosened bolts with stubborn tools that should have been replaced years ago. Every move was clumsy, his body unused to such punishment. Nearby, Kojo, the boy apprentice, whispered, "Careful. The jack's broken. Don't trust it." Isaac's heart skipped. He glanced at the shaky iron jack holding the Mazda. Sweat stung his eyes. A memory flashed. His father crushed under a collapsing truck. He swallowed hard, focused on the bolts, and slid out just as the jack groaned. Clank! The car dropped an inch. The ground shook. The men laughed cruelly. New boy nearly died on his second day. But Kojo's face was pale. He whispered, "One day that jack will kill someone. Bulldog won't replace it. Says it's too expensive." Isaac clenched his fists. Too expensive? For a billionaire the cost was nothing. But here it was death waiting to happen. Later, a police truck pulled into the yard. Two officers stepped out. The men went tense, tools pausing midair. Bulldog greeted the officers with a smile too wide. He slipped a wad of cash into their hands. They nodded and left without a word. Isaac caught it all. Corruption casual as grease on hands. No inspections, no questions. Just silence bought with money. Kojo muttered. "That's why engines fail, why parts are fake. No one checks. We pay, they vanish." Isaac's jaw tightened. His empire's garages might all be like this. Death traps hiding under bribes. In the evening, a wealthy customer arrived in a gleaming black SUV. His gold watch flashed as he barked. "My car must be ready by tonight." "Understand." Bulldog bowed low, grinning. "Yes, boss. Of course." Then he turned, pointing to Isaac. "You. Handle it." Isaac's heart thudded. The SUV was spotless, yet something rattled under the hood. He worked carefully, tightening, checking hoses, adjusting spark plugs. At one point he paused, realizing this car had been deliberately fitted with cheap counterfeit parts. If left unfixed, the car could catch fire. He looked around. Should he fix it properly and risk exposing Bulldog's scam? Or play dumb and survive? Bulldog's eyes burned into him. The men watched, silent. Isaac inhaled deeply. He swapped the parts with whatever real spares he could scavenge, working faster than his aching muscles allowed. Finally, the engine purred smoothly. The customer slid into his seat, revved, and smiled. "Good work." He tossed a wad of cash at Bulldog, who pocketed it with a sneer. But the men weren't laughing at Isaac this time. They were staring quietly at the new boy who had just risked Bulldog's wrath to save a stranger's life. That night, as Isaac lay on his bunk, Kojo whispered, "You're not like the others. Where did you learn this?" Isaac forced a shrug. "My father taught me long ago." Kojo nodded slowly, but his eyes lingered. Suspicion, curiosity, maybe even fear. And in the corner, Bulldog smoked, his gaze fixed on Isaac like a wolf studying prey. Isaac turned to the wall, heart pounding. Day 2 and already the cracks were showing. He had come to live like a mechanic. But the deeper he went, the clearer it became. This wasn't just survival. It was war. At dawn, Isaac overheard 2 men whispering in the shadows near the scrap pile. "Tonight, they're moving the engines. If the police sniff, Bulldog will skin us." Engines. Moving. What exactly was happening in this garage at night? Isaac woke before the others, his body sore. His knuckles split open, every muscle protesting. But pain wasn't the reason his eyes snapped open. It was the whisper he'd overheard the night before. Engines. Moving. Tonight. What engines? Why at night? He slipped out into the dawn haze. The McCullough auto yard looked lifeless, a graveyard of cars. But in the corner, half buried under tarpaulin, he spotted crates, metallic, heavy, far too new to belong here. Before he could look closer, Bulldog's bark split the air. "New boy, stop lazing around. Work weights." The day was brutal. Isaac was ordered to strip parts from dead cars, grease soaking through his clothes until even his skin smelled of iron. Every bolt cut into his palm. By midday, his back felt broken. But between tasks, he noticed things. Certain engines were stripped not for repair but for replacement. Trucks arrived with suspicious regularity, carrying crates like the ones he'd seen. Engines went missing, paperwork was never written, and Bulldog always counted thick bundles of cash afterward. This wasn't just a garage. It was a cover for smuggling stolen engines. Isaac's pulse raced. How deep does this go? In the afternoon, the wealthy SUV customer returned, this time furious. "The parts you used last night weren't the ones I paid for," he shouted, slamming his fist on the hood. Isaac froze. He hadn't used counterfeit parts, he'd fixed them. Bulldog's eyes narrowed. "Is that so?" His tone was sharp, dangerous. He shoved Isaac forward. "Explain, new boy." Dozens of mechanics turned, waiting. The wrong word could expose him. Isaac forced calm. "The old parts were faulty. I replaced them with what I found. The car runs better now, doesn't it?" The SUV owner revved the engine, grudgingly nodding. "True. It runs fine. But don't play tricks again." He tossed Bulldog more cash and left. Bulldog's stare lingered on Isaac. There was no smile, no bark of laughter this time. Just cold calculation, as if weighing whether to trust him or crush him. Blood on the floor. Later, a fight broke out between 2 mechanics over a missing wage. One claimed Bulldog had docked his pay unfairly. The other accused him of stealing from the group's pool. Bulldog settled it with his fists. He slammed the man to the ground, boots heavy, each kick echoing through the garage. Blood pooled on the dusty floor. No one moved to help. "Anyone else want to question me?" Bulldog growled. The men looked away. Kojo's face twisted in silent fury, but he said nothing. Isaac clenched his teeth so hard his jaw ached. Back in his world, he could destroy men like Bulldog with a phone call. But here he was powerless. And yet, as Bulldog's eyes swept over the workers, Isaac felt something shift. Several men were watching him, not Bulldog. Watching the new boy who had fixed what others couldn't, who had stood silent when challenged. They saw something different, and that scared Bulldog. When the sun sank and the garage grew quiet, Isaac feigned sleep. But near midnight, the sound of engines starting jolted him awake. He crept to the yard's edge and peered out. Back on his bunk, sleep was impossible. His father's ghost haunted him. This garage wasn't just a den of hardship. It was a den of corruption, theft, and blood. He could leave tomorrow, end this reckless gamble, return to his life of wealth. Or he could stay, go deeper, and risk everything. David Mensa, the billionaire, had nothing to gain. But Isaac, the new boy, had everything to lose. And yet, as he stared at the ceiling, one thought echoed. 7 days. I promise 7 days. Hourglass not done cliffhanger into day 4. At dawn, Bulldog called a meeting. His voice was sharp. There's a rat in this yard. Someone's watching what he shouldn't. Isaac's heart stopped. Was his cover blown? The morning sun hadn't yet burned through the haze when Bulldog gathered the workers. His voice cut like a blade. There's a rat here, he growled. Someone's been watching things that don't concern him. Isaac's stomach knotted. Around him, men shifted uneasily. Kojo's eyes flicked toward him for a second too long. Bulldog's glare swept the circle, then landed on Isaac. New boy, where were you last night? The yard went silent. Engines hummed in the distance, tools hung mid-air. Isaac forced a steady tone. Sleeping. Ask Kojo, he saw me. Kojo froze, then nodded. Yes. He was in the bunk. Bulldog's eyes narrowed. He studied Isaac like a lion deciding whether to strike. Then with a snort he turned away. Fine. But hear me. Anyone sniffing where they shouldn't will end up under the scrap heap. The meeting ended, but the message was clear. Bulldog suspected him. All day, Isaac worked under watchful eyes. Every time he bent to an engine, he felt the weight of suspicion pressing down. Even the smallest slip, too much skill, too much curiosity could expose him. That night, lying on his bunk, Isaac whispered to Kojo, "Why cover for me?" Kojo's voice was barely a breath. Because if Bulldog falls, maybe we can breathe again. Isaac stared into the darkness. The boy was right. But to bring Bulldog down, Isaac would have to survive long enough to see the truth. And right now, the truth was hunting him. The next morning, Isaac was handed a wrench and ordered to work on a bus engine balanced on the same faulty jack that nearly killed him. Bulldog's smirk said it all. This wasn't work. It was a test. The bus loomed over Isaac, its rusty frame balanced on the shaky jack. Bulldog leaned back, arms crossed, eyes glinting. Let's see if the new boy lives through this one. Isaac slid beneath the bus, the smell of rust and oil pressing down on him. The jack groaned. Metal creaked. One wrong move, and he'd be flattened. He forced his focus, wrenching bolts free with blistered hands. Suddenly, the jack slipped an inch. The bus dropped, the whole yard gasping. Kojo shouted, "Get out!" But Isaac stayed. His father's words echoed, "Don't panic. Engines talk if you listen." With a surge of strength, he shoved a heavy support bar into place. The bus steadied, held. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the yard. Then cheers exploded. Hey! The new boy's got iron in his bones. He didn't run. Mechanics clapped his shoulders, their laughter now filled with respect instead of mockery. Even hardened men nodded approval. Isaac, chest heaving, felt it, acceptance. For the first time, he wasn't just fresh meat. He belonged. But Bulldog's smirk had vanished. He watched Isaac not with pride, but with venom. Respect was a currency Bulldog couldn't allow anyone else to earn. That night, Kojo whispered, "They'll follow you now. But be careful. Bulldog never forgets." Isaac lay in the darkness, sore but unshaken. He hadn't just survived. He had changed the yard's rhythm. And Bulldog knew it. The next day, disaster struck. A worker's arm was pinned by a failing press machine. Men shouted, chaos erupted. But Bulldog only barked, "Keep working. He's replaceable." Isaac's fists clenched. For the first time, walking away wasn't an option. The garage was alive with noise. Engines roaring, metal clanging, when a scream tore through the chaos. A mechanic had been feeding parts into the old press when the machine jammed. In his panic, he reached too far. The press snapped shut, trapping his arm. He collapsed to the floor, shouting in agony. Men rushed forward, but Bulldog barked, "Back to work. Machines don't stop for weaklings." The workers froze, torn between fear and pity. The trapped mechanic writhed, eyes wide with terror. Isaac's heart pounded. Replaceable? Like parts of a car? Rage burned in his chest. He shoved past Bulldog and dropped to the man's side. "Hold on," he muttered. His hands flew over the machine, searching for the jam. He spotted a bent lever, kicked it into place, and with a screech the press loosened. The man's arm came free, trembling but intact. Gasps filled the yard. The mechanic clutched Isaac's shoulder, whispering, "You saved me." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then whispers spread like fire. "The new boy," he stood up to Bulldog. He risked his life. Bulldog's face darkened, his jaw tight as steel. His control over the men was cracking, and Isaac had struck the blow. That night, Isaac sat on his bunk, muscles aching, mind racing. He hadn't just earned respect, he had openly defied Bulldog. Kojo leaned close, voice trembling. He'll come for you now. Tonight, tomorrow. I don't know when. But he will. Isaac stared into the shadows. 7 days. That was the promise. But now the 7th day might not come at all. Cliffhanger into day 7. At dawn, Bulldog's voice thundered across the yard. New boy. You and me. No more hiding. The final showdown had begun. The morning sun cast long shadows over the Makola auto yard. Engines sat silent, tools untouched. Every mechanic stood in a circle waiting. Bulldog was at the center, arms folded, his glare fixed on Isaac. New boy, he barked. 7 days, and you think you're someone. Today we settle this. Whispers rippled through the men. Some nodded at Isaac, silently urging him on. Others looked away, afraid of what might come. Isaac stepped forward, his fists aching but his voice steady. You treat men like tools, Bulldog. You break them and throw them away. Not today. The crowd gasped. No one had ever spoken to Bulldog like that. Bulldog's lips curled into a snarl. He grabbed a wrench, swinging it like a weapon. The circle tightened. Then fight, new boy. Isaac braced himself. Years of boardroom battles had sharpened his will. But never had he faced raw steel in his hands. Bulldog swung. Isaac ducked, the wrench whistling past his ear. The men roared. The fight wasn't graceful. It was survival. Isaac caught Bulldog's arm, twisted, and shoved him back. The foreman stumbled, shock flashing across his face. He hadn't expected resistance. Enough, Isaac shouted. This yard doesn't belong to you. The workers surged forward, shouts rising. Some grabbed Bulldog, pinning him down. The dam had broken, years of fear erupting into defiance. Kojo's voice cut through the chaos. Tell them who you are. Isaac froze. The circle's eyes bore into him. Sweat dripped down his brow. He had come to hide, to learn. But now the truth had to surface. Slowly he pulled off his cap. My name isn't Isaac, he said. I am David Mensah. The yard fell silent. Mouths hung open. Even Bulldog stopped struggling. The billionaire? Someone whispered. David's voice carried firm and clear. Yes. I came here to see the life my father once lived. And I saw everything. The hunger, the danger, the corruption. He turned his gaze on Bulldog. This ends today. Bulldog spat, but the men's grip tightened on him. No one moved to help. David faced the workers. No one here is replaceable. From today, your wages will rise. The yard will be rebuilt. And those who stole from you will answer for it. For a moment, silence lingered. Then cheers erupted. Louder than engines, louder than fear. Men lifted David onto their shoulders, chanting his name. Kojo's eyes shone with hope. You kept your promise, he whispered. David looked at the boy, his voice low but firm. No, we kept it. Together. Weeks later, headlines blazed across the nation. Billionaire goes undercover as mechanic, corruption exposed. Bulldog and his network were arrested. Garages across the country were reformed. Workers finally earned dignity. But in his office, David kept one thing above all. A grease-stained wrench. The same one that had bloodied his hands that first day. A reminder that wealth means nothing unless it lifts others. And whenever he drove past Makola Yard, he slowed down, listening to the roar of engines. Not as machines, but as voices. Voices he would never ignore again. Sparkles, if this story moved you, don't forget to hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire and shock.